What's up, guys and gals? My name is Splattercat, and we are here at the Nerd Castle with the next episode of our Gnomoria playthrough. In the previous episode, we had managed to get established here in Nompton, kicking it with the Gnomie homies out on the corner, slanging that gnome crack or whatever it is that we do on a daily basis. I don't really know how we got. I like to assume that we got here by drug sales, and then that's how we purchased this land to settle or something. I don't know. It helps with the flavor. It helps with the flavor. So anyways, I'm playing like 5 games at a time of Gnomoria right now, so you'll have to forgive me if I forget what's going on in any given one of them. Unfortunately, this is the only one that you're exposed to, and so it just makes me seem tremendously foolish every time I start one of these episodes. But what you will see is that I managed to get everybody named, so go ahead and pause and see if you're on the list. If not, I apologize. I had over 200 names submitted, and I only have like 9 gnomes, so I was like, well, I guess I'll just pick from the list. And so hopefully we'll get enough people on here to where people don't feel left out, but if you are on the list, there it is. If not, there will be more gnomes. We'll probably get up to like 25, 30 gnomes by the end of this thing, or by the time I get bored with it, so it'll probably be okay. Taking a look at all of my farms, what is this? So we got wheat, cotton, we have strawberries, and then we have strawberries. Okay, so we have 2 strawberries. That seems all right. Let me take a look at our stocks really fast and see how we're doing with those. And in our initial stockpile, we have 64 logs, 1 coal. All right. And so taking a look down here, I think our initial goal that we really want to get to is that we want to pay attention to the availability of a bone needle. However, that's not going to show up until probably, oh, my guess is summer is when we're going to get our first yak that we can butcher to make sure that we end up with the things that we need. I was laying this out for something. I think this was going to be a kitchen, as I recall, was what I wanted to do with it. So what I'll do is I'm going to designate this area as a stockpile. There we are. We're going to call it a stockpile for, let's see, where are we on the list here? Foods and drinks, basically beer storage, because gnomes seem to run completely and totally on some kind of alcohol. I have no idea, like some kind of alcohol injection system. I don't know if they're burning it or whether it just kind of goes into all of their cells and then just totally revitalizes them, but for whatever reason, they really, really like beer. And so this is going to be our beer storage area. And so the next thing we need to do is speed the damn game up. There we go. Let's get everybody moving nice and quick. It looks like we're replacing walls in our Great Hall, which is worth 250 already. Great. The reason we want to get this worth a lot of money is because I mentioned in the previous episodes that your kingdom worth determines how many immigrants you get at the beginning of each season. So we've got about 6 days to really get the worth of this room up as high as we can to see if we can get a whole bunch of immigrants, and that kind of benefits you guys as viewers because it means more of you guys are going to be involved in the playthrough. The more immigrants that we have, the more gnomes we get to name, and so there it is. You guys have a vested interest in me having loads and loads of gnomes. The other thing that I want to do in this room is let's get started with some of the workshops we're going to need to make sure that all of our food needs are going to be taken care of. So first things first, I'm going to go with a distillery, although I'd like to take a look and figure out what jobs we have queued up first. Let me look at all my buildings here. Stonemason, we have nothing going on. Perfectly fine. Stone cutter, it looks like we've got our repeat craft up to 25 taking place on blocks, so that's perfectly fine. On this side at the sawmill, we have planks being put up to 25, okay. And then at the carpenter, we have crates being built for a storage job over here. So that's fine. So as soon as he's done with the crates, what we'll go ahead and do is we'll get him started on making the distillery. Now that is going to be not a long-term craft, but it's going to be kind of an all-day task to get him set up at the point where I think it needs 2 barrels to make ourselves a distillery, so it's going to take us a little while to get it done, but it shouldn't be too terrible. It'll just be kind of one of those things where we twiddle our thumbs briefly, or any other protruding part of our body that we can get a hold of, and then once it's all finished up, we can release that, hopefully wash our hands, and move on to the next thing. On the upper floor here, you guys had mentioned that they had changed the way that the merchant system works now to where we need ambassadors, and so that's kind of interesting. I think we do that through diplomacy, and I think we click on the kingdom that we want to go to. And so, yeah, we can host an ambassador. And so let's go ahead and get an ambassador's quarters ready so that we could do that. You guys had mentioned that we can't get merchants anymore until we actually make contact with the neighboring kingdoms, which is also kind of an interesting way to adjust the gameplay. So that was one of those little things that I wasn't aware of. It's been long enough since I played last time to where... Hey, you stop that. Oh no, we have a cavern. That sucks. Oh, that's so deeply displeasing. It's inefficient on so many levels. Okay, well what we'll do then is we'll get mining going this way. And this is going to be ugly because I have a 3 wide over here. And I have a 2 wide right here, but whatever, we'll make it work. It'll all be fine. And so we'll just make like a big old loop so that all of this fits. There we are. You guys had also mentioned that walling in won't work anymore, which is perfectly fine because I don't wall in my kingdoms. I find it kind of disrupts the point of the game. Like, if you're just gonna wall in, why bother playing at all? Because then you're removing all of the threats that you could conceivably be up against. Now, on this floor, on the -7, I do think it's probably going to be a good idea to get some torches going pretty soon, but not until the next season. I think we'll be alright. So I'm going to allow them to do a bit of mining. It's going to come down this way, bam, bam, bomb, and we're going to end up with this big loop around. The reason we don't want caverns is because when you've got a cavern, it'll go down to like the -20 sometimes. And going that far down, somehow the critters manage to climb their way up the walls in just like these weird paths, and eventually you end up with like beetles and all kinds of terrible stuff crawling their way up into your base way earlier than you're ready to deal with them, and it can basically be a game ender. So you want to avoid caverns at all costs. Those nasty, dark, dingy places where all enemies, or all manner of enemies, might be hiding. All of our crates are now done. So let's go ahead and start up the job for our distillery, because drink is going to be one of those big things we need to get handled early on in the game. Oh, it takes 3 barrels. Okay, so we'll stack that up against the wall right now. We'll probably put in a butchery and a kitchen next to it. I don't see us using the kitchen very much for very long, but it might happen. So let's go ahead and get rid of this wall as well. I keep using the keys improperly. You'll have to forgive me. And then once that's done, we're going to go back in, and I don't remember what kinds of walls these were. This was a marble block wall. Okay. And so we need to go to our terrain menu, and if we go to a wall, we can go to the block wall, and we'll say it's going to be marble block. We'll put one in the corner right there just to make sure that everything's working the way we want it to. Over on this side, we will do the exact same thing. And so we will finally have lovely walls built for our base. We've also grabbed ourselves a bit more stone, because stone was always going to be in sort of a short supply here. How are we doing in our stockpile with stone? BTW. So lots of cotton bandages. Where do we get so many cotton bandages from? Do you start with those now? I know for a fact I didn't craft those. Weird. Alright, well, we got plenty of planks. I guess you start with bandages now, so that's a nice little leg up that the developers decided to give you. In previous iterations, I don't think you started with bandages. I think you just started without anything, and if you started bleeding, you had to treat your colony as though it was made out of hemophiliacs, and bumping into walls and anything else could be very, very strictly and unmercifully fatal. There's the stone. So we've got 64. Okay, so we've got enough stone left to last for a while. The other thing that I think what we're going to want to do for our area over here is we could do stone tables and whatnot. I think it's probably going to be better for us to get a little supply of birch off of this hill right here. And then once we have deforested this hill, we're going to also want to get clippings from some of this stuff so we can plant it later on, have orchards, and make our lives a little bit easier. Our food supply is looking a little bit low, so I think I am going to send out people to forage for a bit. We'll send them out to like right there to grab food off of some of these orange trees. And down on this side, we'll do the same thing, and that should get us back up to a satisfactory level of consumables. Now then, on this floor, other things. Oh, the distillery's already up. Fantastic. Amazing. I love it when we've got a strong workforce going and things are just working to our favor. Now, our drinks aren't looking low right now. The cumulative sources that we're getting all of our drinks from are going to be our yaks are giving us milk. And that's going to be our main source right now. Had we any water nearby, we could put down a well. However, wells are not very energizing. Your gnomes, I almost keep calling them dwarves for some reason. It's the strangest slip of the tongue, but I keep making it. For whatever reason, your gnomes really dislike water. It's not flavorful enough. They don't like lagers either. They really prefer those really dark, dingy beers with like stuff floating in them. That's been the big thing that I've noticed about them. Other localities that we could probably allocate for now. I don't think it would be a terrible idea for us to go through and get a furnace out of our metalworking menu, because I think it is probably going to be important for us to get some coal before we start digging a bit deeper. And our big goals for right now in the game, so those are going to be threefold. In the early game, the things you want to think about, I know the game has changed a little bit since the last time that I've played it, but I do think that the original goals that I set forth in that series probably still hold for here. The 3 main things you want to get your hands on are a loom, so that you can make yourself bandages. The next thing that you really want is to find tin and copper, so that you can get yourself going with bronze work. Once you've got bronze work going, I think the third thing that you're going to want to be aware of is getting yourself a bone needle, which is going to be a prerequisite to getting yourself into those cotton bandages, because it's a required crafting piece for the loom. So this right here is going to allow me to make coal, which is then in turn going to allow me to make a bunch of torches. So we need to light these dark areas up. In the dark areas, they have the tendency to spawn monsters on you. I'm paranoid as hell, so I tend to be one of those players that just illuminates the hell out of everything just to make sure. Even if I'm not sure whether monsters can spawn there, I'll probably just put in like 50 torches just to make sure because getting attacked from underground is a bad thing. It's easily as bad as getting attacked from above, especially if you get pincered in between the two forces and your guards end up fighting two battles simultaneously. What have we learned from Operation Barbarossa? Never fight a two-fronted war. That is the thing that we have learned. So anyways, also don't fight in winter when you have like a terrible supply chain. Basically, don't mess with Russia, I think would be the overarching theme that we could probably draw from that whole debacle. But anyways, before I get into historical sources, because that is not my forte, geologists don't know much about history, aside from the history of like digging rocks and hitting things with your face and hoping that they're pretty enough to polish and make money. Is our furnace up? Our furnace is up. And so the next thing that we want to do is let's take note of our log stock. We have 33 pine logs, so we're going to have to do something about that fairly shortly, and I think we've got a pretty decent supply right now to go ahead and... I don't in fact think it would be so terrible of an idea anyways to add my N in there. Let's go ahead and deforest all of this right here. We're going to start a big tree chopping endeavor going. And I'm going to leave this up here for a reason, because we're going to cut clippings from all of this up here. Then we're going to get a pine orchard going for ourselves. We're going to have pine, birch, and probably orange wood so that we have a little bit of variability in our wood stock so that we can make things out of varying resources. I don't know what any of my tree choppers are doing right there. It looks as though Mr. Woods has jumped about. Mr. Woods is looking surprisingly female. Well, that's unfortunate. Well, I apologize, Mr. Woods. Unfortunately, you're now Mrs. Woods, so I think you're going to have to deal with a slight change in your genitalia or your genital configuration. My advice in this situation would be just go with it and enjoy yourself while it lasts, and then hopefully we'll get this thing fixed up somewhere on the back end. So Mr. Woods is unfortunately, or fortunately, I don't know, maybe the person that suggested Woods as a name, I think it was a male actually at this point, so sorry bro, you just lost your genitalia. There was a horrible wood chopping accident, and now, given the wonders of gnomish science, you're a female, so at least you get to have some genital configuration instead of just kind of being neutral like a Ken doll. I mean, it could be worse, I guess, I don't know. But anyways, you got a pretty bitchin' ponytail right now, and you're pretty good with an axe still, so you gotta cut your losses sometimes. Anyways, I think we've got a first harvest coming in, so yeah, our food supply is gonna be looking absolutely crazy right now. Our other wood chopper is more than likely sleeping, so yeah, tree plant is sleeping at the moment. We've got all that right there, that's fine. Dirt storage is working out for us. How much wheat straw do we have? Not a lot. Hopefully the wheat crop comes in pretty shortly because we need something to feed our yaks to. And the funny thing about the yaks, if you've never noticed, is the yaks will just wander off the reservation if they need to get fed. Like there's this weird inherent design where if the rancher isn't around to feed them, they will just wander off and feed themselves and be like, meh, these boundaries can't hold me. This is an artificial force field. This is just a construct. This is a data construct within the realms of computer science. I am like the Neo of yaks. You can't stop me. I will stop all of your bullets and everything else that you think will hold me. Now we need to turn one of these rooms into an ambassador's place so that next season we get a trader. So I think it's not too terrible of an idea. They had said something along the lines of you needed a pretty large space because there's like a minimum worth that they require in order to be housed properly. And so maybe we'll go like that so that we can house 2 ambassadors for now. We'll seal that off with a pair of doors on each side. I don't think they're going to mind anybody walking through their territory to get to their room. If it doesn't work out that way, then I guess this ambassador will just have a super awesome suite in which to live and just kind of kick it while he's here. But we like to live in luxury in Nompin. That's like, we have grills that are made out of platinum. Almost everybody gets one of those. We assign you a chrome-plated 9mm the second you get here, and then you also get a grill, as well as an amazing selection of kind of just various weeds to smoke. That's really, hey, that's how we roll right here. We like to be hospitable. We are indeed based somewhere around the Emerald Triangle, and so we might as well make it so that you're just kind of in a state of relaxation. Anyways, it's easier to conclude business deals when people are nice and smoked up, so I guess I'll just accept that as what it is for now. With the drinks, let's take a look with our distillery and see what we have. No grain. We have a lot of different fruits, though. I'm going to hold off for right now until our drink supply is a little bit lower. I don't want to assign any extra jobs that'll keep people from doing any just kind of little task here and there. I think beyond that, now that the chopping is done up here, good. Looking pretty good right there. I don't know if this is going to be the time in which I want to send people out to grab clippings, or if there's other things to assign them to. I think I'm going to flesh out all of my woodworking and stoneworking areas. So let's make ourselves a, let's see here, I needed a wood carver so that we can make something to trade. And so we'll just drop that in right there. Why not? And then we also need a stone carver so that we can do something similar with our marble supply. And so let's go to our stone menu. We'll jump into a stone carver, and there it is right there. You could walk into a stone carver. You could set yourself up. I don't like that positioning right there. I don't like that at all. I think instead, this room's a little bit awkward. I think instead what I'll do is I'll go back from the other side. I just don't like the way it looks. Like there. I think I like that a bit better. I still don't like it, but it's a bit more acceptable. And so there it is. So we want to get a bunch of stuff together so that we have little trade skills. I mean, they're like random little trinkets like statuettes and puzzle boxes and things of that nature that you can trade to people once they come to your kingdom. Just little things that are worth like 25 or 30 gold. The other thing that I always wish that they would implement in this game is a treasure room, so that as you accumulated, they would actually have a metal currency, and as you accumulated, you would have just this room with piles and piles of gold until you had like an Uncle Scrooge thing going on, where like a Scrooge McDuck thing where you could swim through your money. Your gnomes could just like roll in it like, wee, look at all my money, oh my god, you guys, look at all my money, and they would be so excited about it, and it would be amazing. I think what I would like to do now that we have a coal supply is I'm going to go to my furniture menu, and I don't want to overstock people on jobs, but I am going to put torches in everywhere that we can. So down each one of these little corridors, it's probably wise to put a torch, just to make sure that nothing terrible happens. And then on the plus side of this whole thing, we can now dig down to the lower layers, and we can start prospecting for better metals so that we can get our military ready for when we start getting goblin invasions, which are going to be a big issue for us. I think at the beginning of the next season, the game is pretty good about giving you at least 2 soldiers at the beginning of your first season, and we want to get them going and training as rapidly as possible too, and so we can put them out in the field so that they can start punching each other in the head and just learning to dodge things and just like learning to punch people in the ears. We want to get them body armor though. Chest armor is going to be very, very important to all the things that we construct, because the chest armor ensures that you can't be punched in the throat. This game has like this major contingency where in fist fights with goblins seem to punch you in the throat all the time, and while I will admit that was one of the first pieces of advice that somebody ever gave me when it came to just like fisticuffs in general, was like, oh, just hit him in the throat. And so I understand why the goblins would do it, but at the same time, it's instant death for any of your gnomes that get hit in the throat. It's very, very bad. It collapses their little fragile tracheas, at which point they just roll around on the ground kind of gasping for air and dripping tears everywhere, and then you just like watch them die. It's an unfortunate situation to be in, and one that I do not relish, and so I would prefer to get some chest armor. See that yak right there? He just fed himself. Went down the stairs, fed himself, and walked on back. Oh, good. The wheat crop finally came in, so they're not going to starve. I made a little bit, I think, let me look at how many beds. I did 6 beds. Normally I do 5, so that's why we cut it so close. So we're not going to be able to do any more beds this season, I don't think. We've got a bunch of pine sticks right there, and somebody should be making coal in the furnace. We're going to use pine logs to make these. And we want to craft those maybe to like 15. And while this will put constant stress on our wood supply, once we get our orchards and our groves up and running, it shouldn't be quite as bad. It's just kind of one of those little things you have to deal with for now. I'm also going to send a couple people over. Yeah, let's make some statuettes. Let's craft... Oh, I don't know. We'll make like 10 statuettes. Just something to buy us some extra things when they come here, because most foods and whatnot don't cost that much money. It'd be nice to have a bunch of statuettes to trade, presumably for like emus or anything like that, or emus depending on how you say it. Are these of good quality, poorly crafted? A marble statuette, and so as you can see they have worth right here. And so these are going to be little things that you do want to have standing around just as trade fodder, so that you don't have to like swap out any of your logs or planks or anything to make things work. Next thing I'm going to do is we are going to cut clippings from all of these trees up here. All these little pine trees, and then once all of the clippings have been cut, don't worry, you might be saying, you have totally assigned way too many jobs right now, Splattercat. Don't worry, I'll manually cancel these if we need to get anything else done. I would rather do too much work than too little, and so basically what I tend to do is I queue up tons of jobs, and then if I need them to get something else done right this second, I'll go through and I'll cancel it, although the wheat harvest might be something. Are these farmers, or who's doing this right now? Okay, so Senya and... Oh, so it is our farmers. Let me go ahead and cancel these then. So there we go. We'll cancel all those out to make sure that they get the wheat crop in, because it does look as though they have a lot of picking to be done right now. The cotton appears to be coming. Yeah, there it is right there. So that'll make sure that we feed the yaks. And that was the one harvest that I needed to make really, really sure came in. And the nice thing about this is as they harvest this wheat, they will plant the remainder of this field. I don't know if you guys can see it. Let me see if I can help you out here. You'll notice that there aren't little green sproutlings in any of this other area. It's because it hasn't been planted yet. We didn't have enough seed to get it done. And so now we shall sow seed upon this field, and it'll probably work out better in our favor. Wheat straw, it looks like we're only going to get one out of there. We may get enough wheat straw to put in one more bed. I may have spoke falsely. We've got some torches in right now. That is a lot of torches to get done, so things to think about there. I'm going to try and back off all of the jobs that might be getting done. I don't know if I have anybody assigned as of yet to be working with. There's somewhere where I can look at this. I have nobody assigned to blacksmith, so what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to edit the miner job to include doing blacksmithing tasks until we get people who can do designated mining. I mean, in the early game, it seems to me as though it's easier to just have people doing a ton of jobs. It's a little bit different with respect to, like, for example, Dwarf Fortress. I find with Dwarf Fortress, you really want to... I'm kind of talking out of my ass right now because it's been years since I've played. But with Dwarf Fortress, it's probably been about a good year anyways since I booted it all on up. But anyways, away from the discussion of cobblery and dwarves here, I think in Dwarf Fortress it tends to be a lot more important assigning jobs than it is in this game. In this game, until you've got a ton of gnomes and you've got a ton of different workstations around, you can just kind of have loads of people doing the same job over and over and over again. And so there it is. That was the holdup in our production queue. We didn't have anybody making coal, and so we needed to be careful about all of that. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to put all of our random workshops over in here. And by random workshops, what I'm talking about there, I'm talking about a leather worker. So there it is. I'm also talking about the possibility of a kiln, which is going to supply us with just various crafts that we can give to people. It's just crafting with clay. That's all it is. We don't have a lot of clay right now, but it'll help us get things done later on. We'll put that right there. And then the next one that we're going to put in while we allow everything to run is going to be the most important, in fact. It's going to be the bone carvery, and I think that's going to be back in. There it is. The prospector shop and some of the other stuff we'll talk about. Those don't tend to be workshops that I make very often. Let me cancel the kiln there because it looks like it's not lined up properly, and that will drive me crazy as I play through the game. I'm going to go back, and there we go, and we will reset that. It's probably more important that we get the bone carver done earlier anyways, so why think about it? And with some of those right there, I don't think it would be too terrible of a plan. I don't know where I want my first grove to go. I'm going to allow them to get done with the initial planting anyways. How much wheat straw did we end up with at the end of this season? We ended up with wheat grains there, wheat straw. Where is wheat straw listed? That's one of those things that I almost never look for. There it is. We got 11 wheat straw. So yeah, we want to be careful about that. I'm just going to leave it to feed the yaks for now. I don't think they've taken in the full harvest yet, but I don't want to assign any beds until I have a full head count on how much. I think they eat 1 wheat straw a day. And I think we get 2 harvests per season, so I think that's going to put us at enough like in the next season, but for now we may want to hold back on kind of overdoing it with regards to our wheat supply. And then later on, what I'd really hope with wheat is that wheat becomes the crop that totally makes all of our beer, and then we don't have to sacrifice any of our food in order to make drinks. I think the grove that I'm going to plant is I'm going to... plant a grove. Actually, I could do temporary planting. I don't know if I have enough farmers to permanently do it right now. But we'll put in something right here. And then we want it to plant, we want it to cut clippings, we want to fell the trees. Okay, so that should be fine. There we are. And so we've got this grove, and what'll happen is after they get done with all of their other planting tasks, they'll run on over here and they'll start planting a pine grove so that we actually have a sustainable resource now. We're actually doing something ecological to make sure that we don't run out of trees eventually, and this is an activity you're going to have to partake in eventually because the trees will rapidly diminish from your countryside if indeed you don't. Let's take a look and see how well they're doing with all of these jobs down here. I don't make kilns very often. So we've got clay clumps just about everywhere, brick blocks. Okay, so we can make bricks. That's kind of fun. That'll be cool. And then I don't know... who does pottery fall under? Okay, so it's its own separate task. Well, we don't have a potter right now, so that's perfectly fine. That means we don't have to, like, worry about any pesky, noseless bad guys showing up anyways. So that's perfectly fine and good. They're still making all that over there. How are we doing on this floor? Do we almost have the torches in? We do not. In fact, I think the other jobs that I assigned with regards to building some of these things have probably gotten in our way there. And that's okay, because I think it's about time to break off the episode anyways, and so what I'll let this do is I'll run until we get a couple more of these workshops done, and then we will start the next episode. My name is Splattercat, thank you for joining me here at the Nerd Castle for another episode of pleasant Gnomey goodness in Nompton. I look forward to seeing you all tomorrow. Take care out there, everybody, and as always, all the single ladies, hi do, and all those other catchphrases we have adopted over the years. Later, guys.